России, of course. Well, actually, I am writing a book at the moment, and it's basically it's based on my life. It's not my life, but based on my life, but it has a supernatural theme: angels and demons and things fighting over this little boy. And I describe in this book what I think of what heaven looks like and what hell looks like, for example. It's written from a Christian point of view. During the Middle Ages, 500 years ago, you had your Dantes, your Michelangelos, and people were not afraid to paint heaven, paint hell, write about heaven, write about hell. But now, people want to say, no, let me imagine it how I want. It's a personal thing. And I think this has stopped a lot of art and a lot of writing and things. So that's why I try in my book to sort of go back to this. One of my favorite books is Master and Margarita. And, for its time, of course, it was a very controversial book, but it sort of related the devil and his followers and things like that with a certain time in Soviet history, and this is why it's one of my favorite books. So I also think, like, in terms of, I don't believe that life dies. Matter does not change. Matter cannot be created or destroyed. It only changes form. Newton's law. We are atoms. When we go into the ground, our atoms become trees and everything else. And before us, maybe we were stars. I'm not convinced that really that life really dies as such. It just changes form. Whether there is, heaven or hell or so or whatever, I think that in some way, in some aspect, we will always live on, and our ancestors have always lived on. Even in my genes, in my genetics, my ancestors live on. It's part of our, and in our stories and things like this. My family was in World War One, were in Australia, were arrested and put in jails because they were German. But which is quite funny, of course, being from a Jewish background. But when they left Prussia, there was no Germany. The country did not even exist at the time. And even though this happened to many generations ago, it affects me. It affects me and affects my genes and how everything else. They found that, people who survived the Holocaust, the Jews who survived the Holocaust, it affected their genetics to the children, and so on and stuff like this. So we have always, even just whether it's stories or with genetics, we have the past is part of us. Our past, our ancestors are part of us. You might not like your father, maybe you do, I don't know. But he has an influence on you. Even if you never saw him, he'll still have an influence on you and your genetics, your health, and so on, and everything else, and so on. So I think life as a principle never dies. It always continues.